The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. The last rays of daylight kissed the treetops, casting long shadows that danced on the forest floor. It was a moment of serene beauty, a prelude to the mysteries that the night would soon unveil. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the ancient oaks that stood sentinel over the forest floor. These trees, with their gnarled branches and thick trunks, had witnessed countless seasons come and go. They whispered secrets to those who would listen, their leaves creating a soothing symphony that spoke of time and endurance. Daniel, an avid hiker with a thirst for adventure, smiled, taking a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. The forest was his sanctuary, a place where he could leave behind the noise and chaos of the city. Each step he took was a step away from the mundane, and a step closer to the extraordinary. He had been planning this solo trek for weeks, eager to escape the city's clamor and reconnect with nature. Maps had been studied, supplies meticulously packed, and routes carefully chosen. This journey was not just a physical escape but a mental and spiritual one as well. He sought solace in the embrace of the wild, where every rustle and chirp was a reminder of life's simple pleasures. Deeper he ventured, the sunlight fading with each step. The forest grew denser, the canopy above thickening, allowing only slivers of light to pierce through. Shadows lengthened, and the air grew cooler, carrying with it the earthy scent of moss and decaying leaves. Each footfall was a reminder of his solitude, yet he felt a profound connection to the world around him. The path, barely discernible now, wound its way through a tapestry of fallen leaves in shades of crimson and gold. The ground was a mosaic of nature's artwork, each leaf a brushstroke in the grand painting of autumn. The crunch of leaves underfoot was a comforting sound, a reminder of the cycle of life and the beauty of change. A sense of tranquility washed over him as the sounds of civilization faded into the background, replaced by the symphony of the forest. Birds called to one another, insects buzzed, and the distant hoot of an owl signaled the approaching night. It was a world alive with its own rhythm, a melody that resonated with his very soul. Little did he know this peaceful sanctuary held a darkness he could never have imagined. As the light continued to wane, the forest's true nature began to reveal itself. The once welcoming trees now seemed to close in, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. The air grew thick with an unspoken tension, and the sounds that once brought comfort now carried an eerie undertone. Daniel's journey was about to take a turn, leading him into the heart of the unknown, where the line between reality and myth blurred, and the woods beckoned with a promise of secrets yet to be uncovered. The crunch of leaves beneath his boots provided a comforting rhythm to his journey. Each step he took echoed through the quiet forest, a reminder of his solitary presence in this vast, natural expanse. The sound was almost hypnotic, a steady beat that matched the cadence of his thoughts. He found solace in this simple act, the repetitive crunch grounding him in the present moment. As twilight deepened, the forest floor transformed into a mosaic of shadows, obscuring the path ahead. The once familiar trail now seemed foreign and mysterious, each shadow concealing potential surprises. The trees, tall and ancient, stood like silent sentinels, their branches weaving a canopy that filtered the fading light. The air grew cooler and the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for night to fully descend. A faint rustling sound like dry leaves skittering across the ground reached his ears. He paused, listening intently. The sound was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it cut through the stillness like a whisper. He strained to hear more, his senses heightened by the encroaching darkness. Every rustle, every movement seemed amplified, the forest coming alive with unseen activity. It was probably just a squirrel, he reassured himself, resuming his trek. The forest was home to countless creatures, each going about their nightly routines. He tried to focus on the familiar sounds of the forest, the chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush. These were the sounds of life, of nature's unending cycle. The woods were alive with nocturnal creatures, and a little rustling was nothing to be concerned about. Yet as the night deepened, the sounds seemed to grow louder, more insistent. The forest, once a place of peace and solitude, now felt like a living entity, its every sound a reminder of the unseen eyes that might be watching. He couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Still, a prickle of unease ran down his spine. The darkness seemed to close in around him, the trees pressing closer, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. He quickened his pace, trying to shake off the feeling, but it clung to him, a persistent shadow. The forest, once a place of refuge, now felt like a labyrinth of unknowns. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Every rustle, every whisper of wind through the leaves seemed to carry a hidden threat. He glanced around, his eyes searching the darkness for any sign of movement. The feeling of being watched was almost palpable, a weight pressing down on him. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart, but the sense of unease remained, a constant companion in the darkening forest. The rustling sound returned, closer this time and more deliberate. It was as if the forest itself was alive, whispering secrets through the leaves and branches. The wind carried these whispers, making them dance around Daniel, teasing his senses. It seemed to be circling him, moving through the undergrowth just beyond his line of sight. The unseen presence was agile, almost playful, yet there was an underlying menace that Daniel couldn't ignore. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, heightened his anxiety. Daniel stopped again, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, making his hands tremble. The forest, once a place of solace and adventure, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and unseen threats. He strained his ears, trying to discern the source of the sound, but the dense foliage concealed whatever lurked in the shadows. The more he listened, the more he realized how alive the forest was, filled with sounds that were both familiar and alien. A low growl, barely audible at first, sent a chill down his spine. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with the very core of his being, awakening a primal fear that he couldn't shake off. It was not the growl of a wild animal he recognized. It was deeper, more resonant, as if it came from the depths of the earth itself. Daniel's mind raced, trying to identify the source, but nothing in his experience matched this sound. This was something different, something deeper, more primal. It was a sound that spoke of ancient things, of forgotten legends and untold stories. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Fear, cold and sharp, gripped him. It was a fear that went beyond the rationale, tapping into something ancient and instinctual. His breath came in short, shallow gasps as he tried to steady himself. He knew then that he was not alone in these woods. The realization hit him like a physical blow, leaving him reeling. The forest was no longer just a backdrop to his journey, it was an active participant, a living entity with its own intentions. Daniel felt a presence, unseen but palpable, watching him, waiting. The whispers on the wind grew louder, more insistent, as if urging him to uncover the secrets hidden within the shadows. The shadows from the trees grew longer and more menacing as the last rays of sunlight faded. Daniel's breath came in short, shallow gasps. He had to get out of these woods, and fast. He quickened his pace, his eyes darting back and forth, searching for any sign of his pursuer. The growl came again, closer now, sending a wave of terror through him. It was hunting him, he realized, stalking him through the undergrowth. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. What was out there? What did it want? He stumbled over a gnarled root, falling to the ground with a thud. As he scrambled to his feet, he caught a fleeting glimpse of something moving between the trees. It was tall and gaunt, shrouded in shadow, but he could see the glint of two eyes, burning with an eerie, malevolent light. Panic surged through him, urging him to run, to escape the nightmare unfolding around him. He scrambled to his feet and took off running, crashing through the undergrowth, heedless of the thorns tearing at his clothes and skin. The guttural growl ripped through the forest, closer than ever. It was a sound that seemed to reverberate in his very bones, a sound that spoke of a hunger that could never be satiated. He pushed himself harder, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for respite. The forest floor seemed to rise and fall beneath his feet as he ran, his vision blurring at the edges. He could hear the creature behind him gaining on him with every stride. The sound of its heavy breathing, the snapping of twigs beneath its weight, fueled his terror. Through the dense undergrowth he sprinted, branches whipping at his face. Each desperate breath felt like a victory as he dodged gnarled roots and leaped over fallen logs. Fear lent him a burst of adrenaline, propelling him forward. The forest floor, littered with decaying leaves and fallen branches, became a treacherous obstacle course. He could sense the creature's presence behind him, its rancid breath hot on his neck. The forest itself seemed to conspire against him, its shadows reaching out like grasping claws. A symphony of crashing sounds echoed behind him, each one signaling the creature's relentless pursuit. Daniel's heart pounded like a drum in his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The forest floor seemed to stretch endlessly before him, the trees blurring into an indistinguishable mass. He risked a glance over his shoulder, his blood turning to ice at what he saw. The creature, a grotesque silhouette against the fading light, was gaining on him, its eyes glowing with an unholy light burned into his memory. Through the trees, a faint ethereal glow appeared. Moonlight. Salvation. With renewed determination, Daniel surged forward, his legs burning with exertion. He could see the edge of the forest now, the promise of open ground and safety just beyond. The creature roared in frustration, its heavy footsteps pounding the earth behind him. But Daniel was close now, so close he could almost taste freedom. He could feel the cool night air on his skin, smell the damp earth of the meadow beyond the trees. He burst from the forest's edge, stumbling onto the soft grass of the meadow. Turning back, he saw the creature hesitate at the tree line, its glowing eyes fixed on him. It paced back and forth, letting out a low growl, but it did not follow. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, his entire body trembling with exhaustion and terror. He had escaped, but the memory of that night, the chilling growl and the creature's glowing eyes, would forever be seared into his soul. He never returned to the woods. The serenity of nature held no allure for him anymore, only the chilling reminder of his brush with the unknown. He carried the scars of that night, both physical and emotional, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of civilization. And sometimes, in the dead of night, he could swear he heard the rustling of leaves, a low growl on the wind, and he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the woods